Knowing I had $70,000 a month for living expenses, my girlfriend's childhood friend, Ethan Cole, suddenly started copying everything about me. I had American-style bangs, so he curled his black hair to match. I liked tattoos, so he stole pictures of mine and visited 20 tattoo parlors until someone could replicate them exactly. I wore designer brands. He skipped classes, worked 5 jobs a day, and somehow managed to scrape together enough money to buy the same outfits. At first, I thought he was just a pathetic copycat, but a month later I was diagnosed with a terminal illness and died within days. On my deathbed, the people I loved most didn't even come to see me. Instead, they were tenderly stroking my roommate's head, calling him by my name. I was devastated, confused. What had happened? While my soul lingered after death, I floated there only to see him living in my room, hugging my girlfriend. I heard him sneer. "Thanks, Sophie. If you hadn't financed me, I wouldn't have been able to imitate him, use the system, and steal his luck. Now everything that belonged to Julian is mine." That's when everything became clear. The real problem was his system. Suddenly I woke up. I had returned to the very day Iten first tried to copy my hairstyle. A camera click echoed in the room. Iten, caught in the act of secretly taking a picture, quickly hid his phone. My friend Liam leaned over and whispered, "Julian, do you want me to check his phone? I've seen him using it to point at you lately like a stalker. I can't stand it anymore." I shook my head. "Don't worry. In my past life, I got angry and demanded he show me the photos, but his phone had been completely wiped, and I was the one accused of harassing a classmate." That afternoon, Iten came in with his black hair now styled in the same American-style fringe as mine. The curl, length, even the color, was identical. After that, people started mistaking me for him just from behind. Remembering his system, I messaged my personal stylist. "Sister, I'm done with the American fringe. Design me something hard to copy. The more unique, the better. Bonus if you nail it." She lit up. A minute later she sent me a picture. 7 or 8 stylists. All brainstorming ideas for my new look. Smiling, I turned off my phone and said to Liam, "Come with me and let's get my hair done. Call Noah Grant too." My treat. Liam smiled. "Sure, but Noah and I paid for dinner afterward. Fair is fair." Just as I was about to reply, Ethan's sharp voice sounded behind us. "Where are you going to eat? Why didn't you invite me? We're roommates. Why are you leaving me out? Julian, you look down on me just because I'm poor." Her voice was loud enough to attract the attention of the entire class. Sensing our stares, he quickly put on a pained expression and added, "I know you all come from wealthy local families and I'm just from a small town, but I really want to be your friend. Why can't you give me a chance?" His version of being a friend meant taking advantage of us at restaurants, always making up excuses not to pay and playing the victim whenever we confronted him. This time I had proof, ready to expose him once and for all. But before I could say a word, my girlfriend Sophie Lane, also a student representative, stormed up, furious. "Julian, how many times have I told you I hate bullies? Can you stop bullying others just because your family has some money? And Han may not come from a rich family like yours," Sophie said coldly. "But at least he worked hard coming from a small town to get into this university. You spoiled brats, born with a silver spoon in your mouth, were better off." Listening to her go on and on about money and watching her defend Ethan so vehemently, I felt nothing but disgust. If it weren't for my family's support, she'd still be stuck in that trailer park, probably pressured into marrying someone twice her age, just to help her family survive. If I hadn't convinced my parents to give her extra expenses, if I hadn't constantly bought her luxury items and helped build this false image of a refined young woman from a wealthy family, where would she be now? Yet there she was, ungrateful, resentful of the very money that changed her life. And worst of all, she used that money to help Ethan, knowing full well he was trying to replace me. The memory of her clinging to Ethan in my past life made my stomach churn. Without hesitation, I opened my phone and texted my father. From today onward, stop all support for Sophie. Let her and Ethan work their part-time jobs together to build their future. As I continued typing on my phone, Sophie became more agitated. Julian, are you listening to me? Don't you think you did something wrong? She crossed her arms and snapped. Sophie, can't be with a domineering, irrational guy like you. If you still have a conscience, you should apologize to Ethan and make it up to him. If you don't, what will you do? I asked calmly, as if I were nervous. She raised her voice dramatically. If you don't apologize, I'm breaking up with you. In the past, the mere threat of a breakup terrified me. After all, she had once saved me from drowning, and I had always treated her with devotion out of gratitude. But not anymore. No. After dying alone and under strange circumstances, betrayed by the people he loved most. Then we're done, I said. I looked up from my phone and met her gaze. But since you hate that I use money to pressure others, you must truly despise my wealth. In that case, return everything I've spent on you. Everything. Every single dollar. The total is $42,000. Transfer them to me now. Her expression changed. At first, surprised by the breakup, she relaxed when I mentioned the money, thinking I was just throwing a tantrum. After all, he'd always been generous. He figured there was no way he'd actually ask for it back. With a feigned air of confidence, he said, "Okay. I'll pay you back. I don't need your money." But Ethan's face darkened. The man who ripped me off using my own money couldn't stand the thought of paying it back. No, Julian. What kind of man are you? Asking a girl to pay back money spent during a relationship. Besides, didn't Sophie spend anything on you? Maybe she gave more than you think. Now you're trying to take advantage of her. Sophie looked uncomfortable. She knew how much I'd spent, and it wasn't much. But she still pretended to be generous. Okay, Ethan, she said with a noble air. Julian is my boyfriend. If he wants the money, I'll give it to him. I'm not that stingy. He winked at me, clearly hoping I'd bring it up. In the past, I would have let it go because of his supposed pride, but not anymore. I opened my gallery and pulled out photos of a rose he'd given me in May 2023. A silver earring in August that she wore herself and a handmade ceramic bowl in October. I looked at her firmly. That's all you gave me in our 3-year relationship. In total, they're probably worth no more than $100. The color drained from her face. I tilted my head slightly. Sophie, should I list every transaction in front of our classmates? Or would you prefer I forward the receipts to the class group chat so everyone can decide if you're a gold digger? Sophie's eyes froze for a moment as she studied my expression. She realized I was serious this time, but she still refused to apologize in front of everyone. Her tone turned cold as she gritted her teeth. Okay, it's only $2,000. I'll transfer it. He took out his phone and tapped the screen a few times, pretending to complete the transaction. I already sent it. Don't talk to me again. Despite his efforts, no transfer notification arrived. Eden, unaware that she was pretending, excitedly approached to check his phone and withdraw the money. But after searching for a while, a confused expression appeared on his face. Wait, Sophie. I don't see any transfer record. What did you bet? Which bank? Tell me. I'll withdraw the money. I almost burst out laughing. Sophie's face turned as red as a tomato. She screamed in a panic. Shut up. He tried to drag him away, but I stepped forward and blocked them. If you really wanted to transfer the money, do it honestly. What's with all the theatrics? I haven't received a thing. So what are you trying to do? You despise my money, yet you still enjoy the soft rice. Isn't that hypocritical? Just to make things clear, I picked up my phone and opened all the major payment apps, showing everyone there were no incoming transfers. Sophie didn't expect me to humiliate her like that in public. His expression hardened. Then he forced a smile. It's probably a network delay. The money didn't go through. I'll send it again. This time the payment notification was loud. You received $42,000. He looked like he'd just swallowed poison, but he still tried to maintain his pride. See? I don't care about your money. I can buy whatever I want with you or without you. I smiled as I checked the balance. Good, the money arrived. We're finished. Clean slate. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. I turned to leave with Liam, but Sophie grabbed my arm. Wait, you still haven't apologized to Ethan. You still owe him an explanation for isolating him. His voice rang out in front of the whole class. Oh, right. Ethan hadn't finished tarnishing my name yet. Fortunately, I usually had dinner in private rooms at my family's restaurant, and there were always security cameras. I made a quick call and soon after posted a video clip in the class group chat. It showed the four of them eating together. No one is excluded. If you're wondering if we left him out, just watch the video in the group chat. That's what I shared with my friends. By the time we got to the hall, the group was already exploding. Seriously. She's been crying about being poor this whole time while taking advantage of everyone else. How disgusting. Forget Julian Reed. If I see someone like Ethan coming near, I'm crossing the street. Ethan, seeing the reaction, sent a crying emoji and claimed I faked the video out of spite. But no one believed him. His act had collapsed. He started bombarding my phone with messages, begging me to explain and clean it up. Shortly after, Sophie also wrote to me. Julian, I'm so disappointed in you. Just a small misunderstanding and you had to slander Ethan. He's emotionally devastated. You need to apologize, return the $42,000, and transfer $100. Also, 0 more sob money as compensation, or I'll never forgive you. We're completely finished. His moralistic tone while asking for money was so ridiculous I laughed. He genuinely thought I was his personal ATM. That's when a memory came rushing back. In my past life, after Ethan started changing his hairstyle, hiring a personal trainer, and buying designer brands, people would ask him how he could afford it all. He always replied arrogantly, from part-time jobs. I believed him until I overheard him and Sophie whispering about how they'd squeezed me dry. How they mocked me for being born lucky while they drained me without a second thought. Just thinking about it again ruined my good mood. I wrote a final response and sent it. Get lost. Just as I was about to block Sophie for good, a new notification popped up, an intimate payment alert. It was a charge from the beauty salon. My hand froze. Anger surged through me as I opened the detailed transaction history. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the long list of charges. Men's underwear, condoms, restaurant bills, hotel stays. The first transaction was dated March of last year. So they were already betraying me so early on. Without hesitation, I posted a screenshot directly to the class group and tagged Sophie. Sophie, this is how you used my paid sex service, keeping a man on the back burner while you spent my money. Before she could reply, I tagged Ethan as well. Ethan, having fun, happy now, a jerk and a gold digger. What a perfect match. I immediately unlinked the payment connection and started calling every business I'd ever recharged a membership card with. Cash. Immediately, no one could use my name or money except me. Meanwhile, Sophie had just paid for Ethan's first permanent makeup using the intimate payment service, only to discover that the payment hadn't gone through. After me, I wasn't going to cut off Sophie and Ethan's access to my accounts, my benefits, my life. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't suffocating. The $42,000 transfer felt like a release. I thought it was all over. I was wrong. The first signs were small. A classmate approached me in the library to thank me for a book recommendation I hadn't made. Then, a message from a barista at a cafe he used to frequent. Another double espresso for Julian. He hadn't been there in days. One afternoon, in front of the art history building, I saw him. Ethan was standing by the fountain wearing a Burberry jacket that only I had owned months before. The same haircut I'd given up weeks earlier. The same watch on his wrist. He wasn't alone. 2 students were greeting him with a nonchalance that chilled me to the bone. I approached him. I didn't say anything. He saw me, raised an eyebrow, and smiled at me as if we shared a secret. He didn't say a single word. He just stood there watching me, mimicking me. From then on, everything got weird. I started getting messages from acquaintances asking if I was back with Sophie, since someone had seen them together. My friends quickly stopped replying. At the gym, someone offered me workout tips that I had shared with Ethan. In another life, I began to paranoidly scan my surroundings. Who believed in me? Who believed in him? And which of us was winning? One night I went down to the mailbox in my building. I found an envelope with no return address and my name handwritten on it. Inside, an old photo. Me at 11 years old with my father, smiling on a private beach. Stick to the back, a post-it note that said, "Do you think that smile was yours because of your own merit?" Question from November 2003. I went up to my apartment, my pulse throbbing in my temples. I was alone. I turned on the lights. I closed the curtains. I double-checked the lock. The next day, I saw him again standing in front of the campus entrance with a backpack just like mine. She greeted a group of girls. She laughed with them. And as she turned her head, she noticed me staring. He winked at me. I went straight to student services. I asked if anyone else with my name had logged into the system. "No, just you," they said. But the receptionist hesitated for a second. I saw him search for something on the screen and then quickly close it. "And what was it?" "Nothing," he replied. That night I decided I needed proof. Something concrete. I called the number of a private investigator recommended by a family lawyer. Her name was Clara Hart. Firm, calm, professional voice. "Can you see me in person?" I asked. "Yes, come alone tomorrow at 8. I hung up. I sat in silence. There was something about Ethan that no longer felt like simple obsession. It was as if he didn't just want to copy me. It was as if he wanted to replace me, and he was succeeding. Clara Hart. When I arrived at the cafe where we had agreed to meet, I thought I had gone to the wrong table. I was expecting someone older with reading glasses and a tired expression. But there she was. No more than 30 years old, dark brown hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, fair skin, a sharp gaze. He was wearing a black leather jacket and dark jeans that weren't trying to impress anyone. "Julian Reed," I said, holding out my hand. "Clara," she replied without a smile as she sat down. "Start from the beginning. No embellishments or excuses." I wasn't used to being spoken to like that, but it didn't bother me. Somehow, her direct tone was refreshing. I told her everything. From how she started by imitating my hairstyle, to how she infiltrated my circles. And finally, the note I received. November 2003. While I was speaking, Clara didn't take notes. She just watched me, her eyes fixed on mine, nodding occasionally, never interrupting. "Do you think this person wants to physically harm you?" she asked finally. "I don't know, but it doesn't want to be me. It wants me to cease to exist. Worse, it wants to erase you." She pulled out her phone and asked me to send her photos of Ethan, message logs, and any other material. I did it immediately. "I'll follow up," she said, standing up. "I'll contact you when I have something." "How much is it going to cost me?" "That depends on how much he lies." When he left, I stayed at the table staring at his empty coffee cup. There was something about him, like he'd seen things the rest of US couldn't bear. Imagining that, I didn't sleep well that night. I dreamt that Ethan was living in my house. I spoke in my own voice, but everyone ignored me when I tried to scream. When I woke up, I had a message from Clara. "I'll send you the first report tonight. I need you to be home alone." I spent the day frantically checking cameras, windows, locks. When the clock struck 10, I received the file. A 50-page PDF. Clara wasn't wasting any time. The report showed a series of records: Ethan working in places where I used to work, attending private events where only my invited guests had access, using phrases I myself had posted on social media. In a more advanced section, Clara had accessed sealed medical records from Hillside Clinic, a private institution on the outskirts of the city. Ethan had been hospitalized there for 6 months for an episode of paranoia and dissociative identity disorder. He had been released into his mother's custody. I was 17. Near the end of the document, Clara added a personal note. I hadn't told anyone about Clara's report, or about my father's contact in the records. Part of me didn't want to accept the direction everything was heading. Part of me still thought this was just some crazy person with an inferiority complex, but it wasn't. On Monday, I decided to walk to campus. I needed to clear my head. As I walked past the architecture building, I saw him. Ethan was sitting on the auditorium steps, surrounded by 3 students. He was wearing a white linen shirt, just like mine, even with the buttons undone the same way. His hair was cut in the same style I'd abandoned weeks ago. He spoke with a disconcerting naturalness. One of the boys called him Reed, and he didn't correct himself. I stopped. I didn't move. One of the girls pointed at him excitedly. "Your photo looked amazing in the gallery exhibition," she said, and just laughed. It was my exhibition. My photos. How had they gotten there? That night I called Clara. I saw it. I said, "He's wearing my clothes." Talking to my acquaintances. They called him by my last name. "Do you know if anyone has given her access to your things?" "No, not that I know of. But something tells me she's getting it through other means. Maybe through Sophie. Perhaps through contacts I unknowingly introduced her to. Can you meet me tomorrow? I have something to show you." I found her in a park far from the places I usually frequented. He handed me a physical folder. Inside were printed photos. "What's this?" "And so in the gallery, like you said. But look more closely." The images were clear. And so I spoke with the curator. Smiling beside my works. In one of them, she held a catalog with my name on the cover, pointing as if it were hers. "You said this exhibition is yours." "It is." "Then someone at the gallery gave them permission to use your work. Someone who thinks he and you are the same person." I swallowed. Clara crossed her arms. "Julian, this isn't just a game. He's not imitating you. He's replacing your footprints. It's rewriting your presence. One conversation at a time. One image at a time." I remembered the feeling in my chest when I saw her identical smile. The confidence with which she walked. The way people didn't doubt her version. And if no one believes me, then we have to make it so that what they believe doesn't matter. Only what they prove matters. I didn't sleep that night. I went into my social media. I checked every tag. Every story. I found at least 3 recent posts from acquaintances showing Ethan at events I hadn't attended. And yet, he was still tagged as if it were me. The last straw was a private message from a former teacher. Julian, it's so nice to see you so focused lately. I know you've been through some tough times, but I'm glad to see you're in therapy. Ethan told me about it. I'm proud of you. I hung up. My throat was burning. He wasn't just impersonating me. He was rewriting my emotional narrative. The next morning I went to the gallery. I asked to speak with the curator. He recognized me immediately and smiled. Julian, what a surprise. Are you here to see the replica we made for Ethan? He asked for permission to show your photos in a university presentation. He looked so enthusiastic that I couldn't refuse. I gave a fake smile. Of course, I understand. His humility is admirable, the curator added. He told me he was your assistant, and that's when I understood everything. Ethan didn't introduce himself like I did. He presented himself as the version you don't see. The one who helped me, the one behind the success, the one no one knew, but without whom I wouldn't function. He was rewriting my story from the shadows, from the easiest place to infiltrate the margins. I woke up with my jaw clenched, my teeth etched on my tongue. I'd dreamed about Ethan again, but this time he didn't look like me. It was me, my mannerisms, my tone of voice, my clothes, and everyone around him believed him. They were pointing at me as if I were the imposter. I got up and walked straight to the kitchen. I needed some coffee, something bitter to fully wake up. I checked my phone out of habit. A new message? Unknown number, no text, just a photo. It was a clear picture of my apartment from the window, taken from outside, from the other building. I stood motionless for several seconds. I checked the curtains. They were closed, but they had clearly been open. I gripped my phone tightly. Was it a warning or a provocation? I called Clara without hesitation. Do you have cameras near my building? Yes. He responded quickly. I installed 2 without telling you. One in front of your entrance, the other at the corner intersection. What happened? I sent you the photo. I'm reviewing the material. I'll call you in an hour. I dressed quickly. I skipped class. I walked around the city as if I were hiding. The worst part was that I didn't know if she was talking about Ethan or myself. When Clara called me, her tone had changed. We've got him. She summoned me to her private office, a discreet space at the top of an unmarked commercial building. He greeted me wearing his usual jacket and with a tense expression. Check this out. Check it out. He showed me a recording. It was from last night, 11:45. Ethan crossing the street with a hood up, but his face was clearly visible when a streetlight illuminated him. He stopped in front of my building. He took out his cell phone. He pointed it upwards. Then he slowly walked down the street. He not only knows where you live, he feels safe, as if nothing could happen to him. He's not watching me. I said quietly. He's just playing. Clara looked at me for a second. Then she turned the screen and showed me something else. A leaked phone history. I did something without your permission. We traced numbers he's frequently called. There's one that stands out as long calls, sometimes right after you and your dad have been on the phone. I read the number. It was familiar. Yes, it's your father's private number, the one that isn't on his official records. I felt like someone was taking my apartment away. I sat there, not thinking. My father spoke with Ethan. We can't be sure if he knew it was the same number listed as the emergency contact in the clinic's records. In 2003, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. And if she knew, Clara didn't answer. She just stood there staring at me, letting the silence wash over me. On the way home, I couldn't help but look around. In every window reflection, in every shadow, I felt invaded. Not by Ethan, but by the fact that perhaps I never really knew who my father was. When I arrived, I found an envelope slipped under my door with no return address. I opened it again with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Didn't you ever find it strange that he only had photos of you from the age of 2 onward? It burned. Not because of the content, but because of the memory it stirred. I had asked that question once when I was a child. My father said the others had been damaged, that there had been a flood, that it didn't matter, but now everything mattered. I wrote to Clara, I want to talk to him, to my father, but not only him. But no. She responded immediately. Organize it. I'll take care of securing the environment. Sitting in the dark, I went over the handwritten words again and again. It wasn't just a threat, it was a rift. And that rift started in my own home. My father agreed to the meeting. Without hesitation, it was almost too easy. We arranged it at a private club he'd been going to for as long as I could remember. A place with white marble, heavy carpets, and waiters who never made eye contact. Clara accompanied me, dressed simply in a dark gray blazer and a high-necked blouse, her hair pulled back in a low bun. No one would suspect she was a private investigator. No one would give her a second glance. My father arrived on time, as always, tall, thin, with his gray hair perfectly combed back, impeccable in his midnight blue suit. He approached the table with a slight smile, one of those that doesn't touch your eyes. Julian? He nodded without a hug, without a warm gesture. Father? I replied. Clara just bowed her head. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask who I was either. He sat down and ordered a whiskey, as if we were there to talk business. What's the purpose of this meeting? I took a folder out of my bag. The folder Clara had prepared. I pushed it toward him without opening it. I want you to tell me about Ethan. Her face didn't change immediately, only her fingers, which stopped halfway to the glass. Who? Ethan Cole. He's at my university, he's impersonating me, copying me, stalking me, and he's your son. Silence. A long silence. My father slowly lowered his hand and exhaled through his nose as if he had just read an unpleasant clause in a contract. He's not my son. He's the result of a mistake. One I never repeated. So, you acknowledge him? Acknowledge is a legal term. I never signed anything. I never visited him. They only contacted me once. Their mother was having problems. They wanted money. I gave him just enough to disappear. Clara watched him closely, but without intervening. She knew that silence was his best weapon. And you never thought to tell me why. It had no impact on your life. Until now. My throat was burning. I gritted my teeth. And how do you explain that he's at my university? That he knows everything about me? That he has photos of me? Phrases. Gestures. Friends. Because you want to be yourself, Julian. Because you were born with everything. And he with nothing. Because her voice lowered slightly. I denied her something I shouldn't have conceived. There was a moment of silence between us. A dense one. Awkward. You gave him your number once, years ago. I thought I'd lose him. I didn't imagine he'd stay. I leaned back. The air felt heavy. I don't want your blame. I want protection. What do you expect me to do? Tell the truth. Admit that I knew him. That he's your son and that he's mentally unstable. I want you to sign a statement for the authorities. My father pursed his lips. That would damage my reputation. Clara spoke for the first time. It was nothing more than a scandal involving paternity omission, leaked with medical documents and recordings. My father looked at her for the first time. Her gray eyes narrowed. Then, without saying a word, she opened the folder and read silently. She turned page after page. When she finished, she placed the document on the table. "I want a copy of this and time to consult with my lawyer." "You have 48 hours, Clara said. A formal complaint of harassment was then filed, and a public investigation was launched. He stood up, finished his whiskey in one gulp, and left without saying goodbye. I stood there watching the revolving door close behind him. I felt a pang, not for Ethan, but for myself, for having grown up believing my family was made of marble when it was full of cracks. Clara touched my shoulder gently. "You did well. I don't feel like I've won anything." "Not yet, but today you planted a bomb under a lie. And bombs don't make a sound when they fall, only when they explode." My father's reply arrived sooner than expected. A terse message sent by his personal assistant. "Mr. Reed will sign the statement. It will be ready tomorrow at noon." It was enough, but I didn't feel relieved. I felt exposed because by signing, I wasn't protecting myself, I was protecting herself. As always, Clara and I went to pick up the copy the next day. She read it line by line as we walked down the marble hallway of the law building. He nodded when he finished. "It meets the bare minimum, but it's no good. That's all. After all this time, Julian, this is just the first nail in the coffin lid." That afternoon, Clara asked me to go with her. She didn't tell me where. He drove out of town on a back road, between old trees and nearly forgotten farmhouses. After almost an hour, we stopped in front of a small house with unpainted wooden walls. "Ethan's mother lived here," he said, getting out of the car. "It's rented in Miguel's name. Last payment 8 years ago. They came in after being evicted, but they didn't throw everything away." We crossed the rusty fence and pushed open the door that wasn't locked from the inside. The air smelled of dust, damp cardboard, and rotten memories. The room was empty, except for one thing, an entire wall covered in papers taped up, photos, clippings, snippets of printed conversations, pictures of me since I was a teenager, some clearly stolen from social media, others taken at private events. One of me at 13 holding a trophy, another at the beach with Sophie, and yet another in my bedroom, asleep. "What?" Clara approached. There were handwritten notes next to each picture. "She's smiling just like she did at the funeral. Look how he touches his neck when he's nervous. I found this watch. It made me want to throw up. It was too intimate. It wasn't admiration, it was dissection. He had spent years dissecting my identity." "This isn't just obsession," Clara said softly. "It's construction. He's building a replica, not to copy you, but to replace you." I found an old folder in a box on the floor containing documents, including a medical notebook with a diagnosis of borderline identity disorder, dissociative episodes, compensatory obsession with successful male figures, and a clinical sheet with an official stamp. Ray listed as a direct family contact. Date, November 2003. My stomach clenched. I looked at the wall again. It was like seeing my distorted reflection in hundreds of pieces. Each one was me, but none of them were mine. "Do you think she's going to act?" I asked. Clara didn't answer right away. "Not directly. He thinks he can win without violence, that he can convince the world you're the copycat." I sat on the floor with my back to that madness. What if he succeeds? He won't, because now the mirror is broken. And he was reflected in something that no longer exists. I looked at her for the first time since all this began. I saw a crack in him, not in his facade, but in his eyes. He knelt beside me. He said nothing. We stood there, silent, facing a wall that told a story I'd never written and that now I finally had to finish. Going back to campus after that was like stepping into a distorted version of my own life. Everything felt slightly off. Eyes darted around too quickly. Conversations fell silent when I approached, and yet no one said a word. No one asked any questions, as if they all knew something I didn't. 3 days had passed since the visit to Ethan's mother's house. Clara had taken the evidence to her contacts at the prosecutor's office. They were building a case of aggravated harassment and identity theft, but one piece was still missing, a reckless move by Ethan that would shatter the facade. It didn't take long to arrive. On Thursday afternoon, I received an email from the university. An invitation to a contemporary art student exhibition. Explorations of Urban Identity. The email was addressed to me as one of the invited guests. The curator was the same one from the gallery where Ethan had infiltrated. Curiosity got the better of me. Clara insisted on walking with me at a safe distance. I went alone. I dressed in a sober, dark shirt. I pulled my hair back, making it clear that I was no longer the same Julian I used to be. The gallery was full, with soft lighting, soulless background music, and white wine in thin glasses. And there he was, Ethan, next to one of the central pieces. An enlarged photograph of my bare back, tattoos visible in black and white against a blurred background. An exact copy of a picture Sophia had taken of me 2 years earlier in Berlin. Privately, never published. I froze. The sign under the photo said, "Transition, poor work." I approached. "What do you think?" Ethan asked from behind me. I turned around. His hair was styled exactly like in the picture. He was wearing an exact replica of a chain I had custom-made. His smile was soft, calm, almost sincere. "Didn't you have the right?" "The right to what?" "To show the pain? To show what others hide?" She raised her glass with a theatrical gesture. "Art doesn't ask for permission, it just exists. That photo isn't yours, I'm sure." No one else seemed to notice. I looked at it and it was like seeing a reflection distorted by water. Similar, but not real. "Why?" I asked softly. "Because I should have been you. Because every night for years I closed my eyes and saw your life, your clothes, your parties, your bed, your luck. Because while you grew up with privilege and affection, I listened to my mother weep silently, repeating your name like a prayer. You didn't have my name, but you had my blood," she replied with serene rage. "And that was enough for me to hate you." I pushed him, not violently, but contemptuously. I turned around and left the room. Clara was waiting for me outside by a black car. I went up without saying anything. He did it. He displayed an intimate photograph of me as his own work. Perfect, perfect. Enough to file a criminal complaint, misuse of image, intellectual property theft, and harassment. "And if no one believes me, Julian," she said, turning her face toward me. "This is no longer about believing, it's about exposing." And today he showed himself completely. I looked out the window. The city lights stretched out in the rain. The gallery lay behind me like a scar. I no longer cared about getting back what was mine. Now I just wanted him to lose everything. The news spread faster than I imagined. The day after the exhibition, several student social media accounts began sharing the photograph, celebrating Ethan's bravery in portraying male vulnerability. No one knew that the back wasn't hers. No one imagined that the image had been stolen from my privacy. Clara wasted no time. She filed a complaint for unauthorized use of her image and harassment with campus authorities and provided copies to the local police. The document included evidence of the mural found in her mother's former home, her medical records, the video recorded in her building, and now the unauthorized appropriation of an intimate work of art. Upon receiving the official notification, the university was compelled to take action. A disciplinary meeting was scheduled. Ethan was provisionally suspended. Finally, something was happening, but I wasn't celebrating. There was a strange emptiness. A part of me felt exposed, dirty, as if my body no longer truly belonged to me, as if every glance in the hallway wasn't directed at me, but at a distorted version of me, created by someone else. Clara noticed. "Aren't you satisfied?" she asked, sitting across from me in the university cafeteria. I don't know how to feel. Everything I get back is already tainted. She nodded, looking down for a moment. I understand more than you think. Something like that was stolen from you years ago, too. But it wasn't a photograph. It was a life I built with someone who was never who they claimed to be. She shrugged. That's why I left the police force. There are betrayals that even the system doesn't know how to process. There was a silence between us. Not awkward, calm, as if for the first time we both understood that shared pain can also be a form of companionship. That afternoon, before we left, Clara touched my arm. You still have things that no one can copy. Like what? Your ability to remain yourself, even when they try to erase you. Her words stayed with me until nightfall, but not for long. After 2 a.m., my cell phone vibrated. An unknown message, no text, just a video. I opened it. It was the security camera footage from my family's restaurant. And Tan was there, sitting alone on the enclosed terrace, drinking wine from a glass. He was looking directly at the camera. He knew he was being filmed. An hour later, another message. This time with text. Your blood didn't stop me. Neither will your name. I called Clara immediately. She's inside the restaurant, mine. I'm on my way right now, she replied without hesitation. Stay where you are. We're going to close the door on him. Half an hour later, she was at my building. She walked in quickly, without a coat, her face serious. Julian, listen, she said as she took out an envelope. This arrived in my mailbox. Not yours, mine. Inside was a copy of my birth certificate with the date changed by hand, crossed out and rewritten with Ethan's. Below the inscription. There's only room for one. Clara looked up. His eyes were no longer just those of a professional. They were those of someone who had seen too many shadows. He's breaking through the barrier. You no longer just want to be yourself. So what does it want? For you to cease to exist. The restaurant has been closed indefinitely. The next day, my father made no comment. He only sent a brief message. It's under control now. I knew what that meant. In their world, under control was synonymous with silenced. And yet, Ethan remained free. The complaint had been formally accepted. The prosecutor's office was preparing precautionary measures. The university was about to initiate a full disciplinary process. But all those mechanisms moved with the agonizing slowness of the system. Ethan, on the other hand, moved with precision. 2 days after the incident at the restaurant, I received a letter. Thick, white paper with blue ink, meticulous, almost elegant handwriting. There was no return address. I want to see you just once. Not to hurt you. To talk brother to brother. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Plaza de los Castanos. Banks in the back. I come unarmed. No games. The truth. You decide if you want to settle this in court or openly. Clara immediately objected. Not just for safety, but because of what it meant psychologically. He wants you to legitimize him. If you agree to meet, you give him exactly what he wants. Your attention, your validation, your presence. Are you sure? Yes. Not because of him. For me. I want to look at him one last time and be done with this. She agreed, on one condition. Undercover police presence a block away. I agreed. I arrived at the plaza 5 minutes early. The air was cold and dry. The trees, bare from autumn, looked like skeletons silently observing. I sat on the farthest bench, just as he had indicated. At 5:02 p.m., Ethan appeared. He was wearing a long gray coat, black gloves, and his hair was pulled back in a low bun like mine sometimes. He sat next to me without saying a word for almost a minute. "Do you know what the worst part of all this is?" she finally said without looking at me. "That you forced me to be your shadow. I didn't force you to do anything. No, you never felt that weight on your back, that chill when you knew I was near. I felt something, but it was pity." He laughed, but it was brief, harsh. "I hate you," he said. "And at the same time, I need you because you shaped me. Without you, I would be nothing." "You're nobody," I retorted, "because you chose not to be, because every day you had a choice, and you always chose the most cowardly path." Finally, he turned to me. His eyes were dark, tired, empty. "And what did you do? You were born with everything and took it for granted. You lived as if the world revolved around you, as if nothing could touch you. I saw how everyone adored you, how Sophie protected you, how your friends followed you, even your mistakes were applauded. And yet, here we are, you with nothing, me with wounds. I don't want to hurt you, Julian, not anymore. But if you don't exist, the world can give me one chance, just one. So, it's not hate you feel, it's envy. And that's going to rot you from the inside out." We looked at each other in silence. Then, from behind the trees, a firm voice was heard. "It's over, Ethan. Hands where we can see them." 2 agents emerged from their hiding place. Clara was with them. Ethan didn't move, he just closed his eyes. "Is this how it ends?" he asked. "This is how it should end," I said. They handcuffed him without resistance. She didn't scream, she didn't struggle, she just walked away as if she had finally understood that her story didn't have a glorious ending, that it never had. Clara looked at me, nodded. I stayed there for a while, alone on the bench. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky gray and copper. For the first time in a long time, I felt something akin to peace. Not because I could no longer be hurt, but because I no longer lived in fear of losing myself. 3 months have passed since Ethan's arrest. He was not found guilty, at least not fully. A psychiatric team determined that his mental state impaired his judgment. He was admitted to a specialized clinic under observation. Sometimes I wonder if he truly understands that he lost, or if he still believes he'll win when he wakes up. But that's not up to me anymore. For weeks after her public disappearance, I received silence. No one spoke about the case. No one asked any questions. The university tried to erase all traces, as if it had all been a system error, a passing virus. But I didn't forget. I made decisions. I legally dropped the Rate name. Not out of shame, but because I didn't want my identity tied to a family that had chosen to ignore the problem until it became a scandal. Now I go by Julian Hart, a name I borrowed from someone who truly taught me what it means to be seen and protected. Clara didn't say anything when I signed the documents. She just smiled with her eyes. The foundation we founded together. Yes, together, because she refused to use her name, but she did more than anyone else. It's called the Renaissance Foundation. It works with young victims of manipulation, psychological control, or hidden emotional abuse. She offers legal advice, therapeutic support, and workshops at universities on boundaries and emotional impersonation. I'm not looking for applause, just balance. One day, during one of our open sessions, a student raised her hand and asked, "What was the hardest thing to recover from after what you went through?" I thought for a second. Then I answered, in my own voice. Speaking without fear of sounding like someone else, without doubting my own words. After that, Clara and I walked together down the hallway. She, with her usual discretion, and I, with the certainty that I didn't want her to leave. That night we had dinner at the apartment for the first time without talking about work, only about music, movies, silly things. We laughed, we cooked something that turned out awful, but we ate it anyway. Finally, I approached her and asked, "Did you ever think this could happen between you and me?" She looked at me with an odd calm. "No, but I also didn't think you'd live to tell the tale. We kissed, not with movie-like passion, but with the certainty that there were no longer any shadows between us. A week later, we inaugurated the small Renaissance Foundation Center, a modest space, but full of light. There's a plaque at the entrance. Here we don't seek perfect justice, only truth, even if it hurts. Some days I still feel echoes of what I lived through, some glances, some silences, but they no longer haunt me because now I am finally Julian. Not the heir, not the survivor, not the reflection, just me.